Welcome to the Zoom interview with County Court Group 9 candidate Karen Velez. My name is Fred Hadley. I am the publisher of the Village Sentry, a weekly newsletter sent to the readers of Sentry Village, Boca Raton. So I want to welcome Karen Velez and thank her for agreeing to do this interview, which, by the way, with your knowledge and permission, we are recording. Is that okay?
Absolutely, yes.
Terrific. Would you please start off with a brief biography, where you were born, where you grew up, your law background, etc. You have the floor.
Okay. First of all, thank you for having me. Thank you for doing this. I appreciate it, and I appreciate your time. I'm Karen Velez. You're taking me back to where I was born. I was born in the Bronx. I was raised in Brooklyn. I went to undergrad at Brooklyn College. I am the youngest of 5 children. My mom is 90, bless her heart, and a vibrant 90. We are Puerto Rican. I was born in New York, but my siblings were all born in Puerto Rico. And in fact, I went to kindergarten in Puerto Rico, and I speak Spanish. Many of my clients speak only Spanish, and so I do speak Spanish. And I came to Boca, to Florida, initially to Coral Springs, but I've been in Boca for over 24 years. I'm married. My husband is Kevin. We've been married for over 24 years. And we have a 10-year-old. I'm a mom. I'm a business owner. I have the Velez Law Firm. The Velez Law Firm is here in Boca Raton. And so when we came here, I came down with Enterprise Rent-A-Car. They relocated me to help open their Fort Lauderdale, Florida claims office. And I then left Enterprise to become a teacher. So I'm a prior teacher, and I taught psychology and advanced placement psychology to high school students. Went to law school, started my legal career as a public defender. I was a public defender for well over a decade. I've been in court thousands of times. I've handled every kind of criminal state court legal proceeding successfully. And when I say I was in court thousands of times and daily, I mean that I was a Spanish floater assigned to the clients that spoke only Spanish. And a small percentage of my clients also spoke, English or only English. But I would be in one day anywhere from 7 to 10 courtrooms before 7 to 10 different judges. And after leaving the public defender's office, I started my own firm. I have the Velez Law Firm located here in Boca Raton, off of Glades Road. And I do predominantly family law work and some criminal law.
Okay, terrific. Now, originally, this, by the way, is your first foray into electoral politics. You never ran for office before, is that correct?
Correct. I've never run for office before.
Yeah. By the way, where did you go to high school? Was that in Queens?
I went to South Shore High School in Brooklyn, in Canarsie.
Okay, well, I'm from Brooklyn, but I moved to Queens by the time I went to Bryan High School. All right, so we have a little common background there. So originally, you filed to run in Group 7 against an incumbent named Marnie Bryson. Now, she's one of only 2 judges in Palm Beach County that were disciplined by the Judicial Qualifications Committee. The first one would be Dana Santino, who they felt her violations were so severe that she was actually removed from the bench, and has the distinction of being the only judge that was ever removed from the bench in Florida, or certainly at least in Palm Beach County. And that was because of statements that she and her campaign made on social media and in an interview that criticized her opponent, Greg Lerman, for defending murderers, rapists, batterers, etc. Of course, Greg is a defense attorney, and that's how he makes his living. So before we get into, because you've recently been in the news with a violation that's been filed by one of your supporters against your opponent, but before we get into that, just by way of background, I want to do a little screen share and show you a little clip that I put together based on my audio recording with Dana Santino. former Judge Dana Santino. And we didn't have video back then. We weren't doing Zoom. So I just put in some still photographs. So, well, this is 2.5 minutes. So I think it might be enlightening.
Okay, it is October the 5th, 2016, and we're going to do an interview with Dana Santino, who's running for county court judge. And because this is Florida and there are strict rules about recording, I'm just going to ask you to please acknowledge and give me permission to record this interview.
Yes, Fred, you've got my permission
To
record this interview.
perfect. Okay, thank you.
And taking the job very seriously. My opponent also is a 30-year criminal defense lawyer. He has only seen one side his entire career, and that's the side of the defendant. He's defended murderers, rapists, pedophiles, batterers.
Is there anything wrong with that?
There's nothing wrong with that. Everybody deserves a defense. And I think that's what the public defender's office is for. And I think that they
So
do
why
a
mention it?
fantastic
I mean, it sounds like it's negative.
Well, I'm mentioning it because I committed my life's work to defending victims, children,
Oh, okay. So in other
etc.
words, I think what you're saying is that he'd be more qualified for circuit than county, or doesn't have the same.
I think that he doesn't have the ability to identify with a victim of a crime or with the state's perspective. I think it's very important in county court to be able to identify with the parties that are in front of you. My background, before I went to law school, I was a probation officer. I was a rape, homicide, and domestic violence counselor.
Right.
And I also ran programs that were alternatives to incarceration for first-time offenders to get them out of the system and avoid labeling. Very successful program. I was going to graduate school, my master's of public administration, and I had a professor that was a judge who said to me, said, if you have the ability, it would be wonderful for you to take this passion to the next level. Consider law school. I was married at the time. I was 27. And I
Not
went,
to Chris? Or?
I was.
Oh,
We've
so
been married
only
for 23
married
years.
once.
Yeah, only
No
married
kids,
once.
right?
No children, not by choice.
How do you
God's
say that
plan.
dog? What's that dog?
Zoe.
No, but there's a breed.
Oh, Shih Tzu.
Shih Tzu.
Yeah.
Got to be careful how you say
Shih
that.
Tzu, exactly.
Say that too loud in the clubhouse, you can
You're
get
going to get
suspended.
trouble. You could get suspended, that's for sure.
Since your original opponent was going to be Marnie Bryson, and she was cited or disciplined for excessive absenteeism and tardiness, I think is the word that they use, that she just wasn't showing up or she was showing up late. Why did you leave that race and go to Group 9? I would think if I were running, I would want to go after an opponent that had a weakness. So what's the thought process there? Why did you switch?
So, good question. The judicial bench, like any other office, needs to be more representative of the population it serves. And I believe we need more women in office, certainly more women on the bench. And I did my research, and Judge Bryson, if you recall, had been going through this issue for some time, and she knew, obviously, she was up for re-election. So she had secured, spoken to, and received endorsements from, several endorsements, including from women's groups. And I confirmed that. And it is difficult, obviously, to unseat an incumbent, which she was, any incumbent, obviously. And in an all-female race where she'd already spoken to and received endorsements from women's groups, I did more research, if you will. And after I'd researched, I'd seen that this judge, my opponent, Judge D'Amico, he was appointed 21 years ago, and he had never had to face the voters of Palm Beach County.
Who appointed him, by the way? Who appointed him?
He was appointed by Governor Bush.
Jeb, of course. Right.
Yes.
The third Bush, if you
Yes.
will. Right. Okay. So you decided that you're going to go against Judge D'Amico, who I believe has an unblemished record. The only weakness, as you pointed out, is that he was never elected. He was an appointee, and he was never been challenged in his since 2001, I believe. All right. Now, subsequent to your changing from 7 to 9, one of your supporters filed a complaint, which any citizen is entitled to do, with the Judicial Qualifications Committee against the D'Amico campaign. Can you explain what the nature of the complaint is? And do you think that it rises to a comparable level of canon violation as the St. Tino and Bryson violations? And I'm going to try to bring up some screenshots as you talk, but go ahead. If you could start answering that.
So this was an unfortunate event. The rules are designed to make the process fair, especially in elections. You've been around long enough to know that elections matter, rules matter. Sadly, Judge D'Amico, whether it was his campaign and these mistakes were made on his behalf, there were rule violations. Judges, as you know, are held to a high standard, and the judicial canons are very precise and very strict, as they should be, because they are, again, this is a sitting judge, and he rules, and his decisions affect the lives of our community. And if you look at some of this stuff, his campaign made it seem like the only way that voters could be safe is if voters voted for him.
Okay, wait, let me just interrupt you. What are we looking at right now? This is a screenshot, and it says it's from Rebecca Shelton.
Okay.
So can you give us a little enlightenment on this? Who's Rebecca Shelton, first of all?
I believe Rebecca Shelton is his campaign consultant, or at the very least was helping with the campaign. I mean, I can't confirm that she's his consultant, but I do know that, you know, they've been working together, and she shared that on her personal website.
Right. So what's wrong with this? Is this is offensive to you, I gather?
So I don't see what you're looking at. Let me hang on.
Oh, I'm not sharing the screen. It says
You're not sharing the screen.
Oh, wait a minute. You are sharing screen, and now it's a. So wait, I'll say stop share, and then I'll say this Zoom is just not perfected yet. I'm saying share, and I'll just check share sound. And do you see anything now? No.
Yes, I do.
Oh,
This is, so I think the technical difficulties abound today.
Yeah, this is our second interview. The first one, FP&L scuttled, but that's okay.
Yeah, I guess you're having work done in your community. Anyway, so as I was saying, it's an unfortunate situation. When you look at this, you know, endorsed by the people we depend on. There's another one that said endorsed by the people that.
Okay, wait a minute. Let me see. I think that's the second one here. I'm scrolling down. This is endorsed by the people we depend on.
Okay, so let me give you a little history. It started with an email, Fred. The email said something along the lines of endorsed by the people that keep us safe, and I received that email. And so
I have that. Do I have that one?
I don't know if you have it or not, but can you? No. If you stop sharing, I'll explain. So essentially, it's. I mean, even if you look at that one. But I printed it out. I should have brought it. But the point is that it said endorsed by the people that keep us safe. And I could probably look and see if I have the email, but essentially it was one of those things where the language in it, two things, said only by voting, you know, for Judge D'Amico, could you be kept safe? Only by voting by Judge D'Amico, you know, could you be, there was this umbrella of a specific group. And unfortunately, I want to try and open up my email so I can look at it exactly, but I can't because you're screen sharing. But I have the exact email. I want to see, maybe I could see it on my phone. And the issue was that it implied that voters had to vote for Judge D'Amico in order to be kept safe. If you voted for the other person, you wouldn't be kept safe.
But it doesn't say that. It doesn't say that if they vote for you.
But
they
if
won't.
you shut it out, I'll, okay. I mean, I was gonna, you're not sharing, okay, I can look up the email. I will find it, and I apologize. I didn't know.
We're off share now, and I'm back to you.
Hang on a moment. I happen to receive.
Doesn't every candidate say, I'm the one, you know, you'll be better off with me than my opponent? And that's not exactly, I don't know if that's a violation or not. I know in the case of Santino, she said he defends murderers, rapists. He had these horrible graphics that made him look like a murderer and a rapist, whatever that means. And that's pretty obvious. But I don't see any attack on you in these ads. It's just saying, you know, our guy is the best guy. Tell me, what do you really think this is a significant violation? And have you heard anything from the JQC? Have they acknowledged that they've received the complaint, and what are they doing, processing it? What's going on with that?
So you asked a couple of questions there. So specifically, was the violation, you know, valid? Was the violations happened? And essentially, it was on May 11th, I received a campaign mass email, and it was sent to potential voters. And at the bottom of it, there's a bright yellow banner, which says, Judge D'Amico is supported by the men and women who keep us safe. And it's okay, as you said, for endorsements to happen, but this particular one had the large logo in it. And it's a campaign advertisement telling voters that Judge D'Amico keeps us safe, and we're not safe without Judge D'Amico. The implication in that statement, sadly, is that there's bias towards a particular group of people. In this particular case, you know, law enforcement. And again, I think I mentioned it. I come from a background of law enforcement. If I didn't mention it, my husband was an officer, my brother, you know, officers and teachers. And in sending out not just that email, but also on his Keep the Judge D'Amico campaign, where he said stuff like endorsed by the people we depend on, with these giant logos, some of which were, you know, bigger than even his name. There is unfortunately a violation in that he's not being fair and impartial. He's under the umbrella of, you know, law enforcement or first responders. It wasn't, you know, just the email, it was an email and numerous posts. And so the judicial canons require that, and in fact, it's required that all judges should be fair and impartial. And my feeling is, whether you're in Sentry Village or Lake Worth, if you go into court, you know, any courtroom in Palm Beach County, any courtroom anywhere in the country, but certainly in Palm Beach County, you should feel that you're going to receive a fair and impartial hearing, a fair and impartial day in court. And if there's an implication by the campaign that there's preference for a specific group, you're not going to feel that way. And voters, residents, everyone that appears in court should feel that they're going to receive a fair and impartial hearing before, and not, it's not biased before, you know, Judge D'Amico and in any courtroom across the county.
Okay. How has the D'Amico campaign responded? When was this complaint filed? About a week ago?
I believe it was filed about a week ago. And your second part of the question, now that you've asked that one, I want to answer the second part of the last question. You said, has the JQC responded? So my understanding is that they meet every several weeks, the JQC. And so, you know, you would have to confirm the process with them. But my understanding is it was received, and then it'll be addressed towards the end of June, maybe the beginning of July. Don't quote me on the date, but in the next you know, 6 weeks or so. But it was received, to answer your question. And I'm sorry, can you repeat the last question you just asked me? Whether or not the Judge D'Amico campaign, how they responded?
Yeah, have they altered their media campaign? Because Rebecca Shelton was quoted in Jane Musgrave's Palm Beach Post article saying that we're going to change some of the wording to make her, meaning you, comfortable. Have they done that? And are you now comfortable?
So I don't know about you, but when I hear someone referring to a 16-year lawyer, mother, business owner, you know, Palm Beach County resident of over 24 years as her and making me feel comfortable, it's minimizing and it's patronizing. This isn't about comfortable. This is about rules that were violated that are precise and strict. And if she wants to take the position that she's removing them to make me comfortable, that's her right. She can give whatever reason, but she did stop and she did remove them. And they don't exist.
So in other words, you won't know looking at her, at Judge D'Amico's website that he's endorsed by the PBA? You're saying they removed the endorsement or they changed the graphics? Which is it?
So I haven't checked. They removed the language. And I don't know if he's still endorsed by the PBA. When I looked, maybe about 5 days ago, a week or so ago, the day after the article came out, the posts were removed, and I did not see the PBA endorsement, to answer your question.
So who exactly, you didn't file the complaint, right? It was one of your supporters? Can we know the name? Is that a matter of public?
Sorry.
Is that a matter of public record? Can we know the name of who signed the complaint?
I'd rather not say, only because I don't know if it's a matter of public record. I don't believe that it is. And so I'd rather not say.
Fair enough, but let me just ask you this. Was this done in consultation with you or the campaign? Or was it just some random stranger that said, hey, this is wrong? What's the genesis of the complaint? Did it start with you and you called up a friend and said, I need a favor? How did this come about?
It did not start with me needing a favor. It started out with a friend being outraged. Number one, that I'd never even spoken to the PBA or these groups and had an opportunity to be heard or expressed my position as to why I was running and why I would be I would want the endorsement and discuss it. I never had those discussions. So the outrage was seeing that not only the endorsements happened, but the endorsements were, the language and the way that they were couched was, Judge D'Amico keeps us safe, and a vote for Judge D'Amico, is going to keep all of us safe. And it implied that I wasn't all of us, this voter wasn't all of us. And so the person's reaction was outrage. And I saw it and I understood it. And I said, listen, endorsements happen all the time without, them speaking to both sides. It's just the way of the world. But I saw and understood the anger about the implication that a vote for me wouldn't keep us safe. And so, yeah.
So we also heard a rumor that another candidate running for circuit court, but by coincidence, pronounced the same as you, Karen, but she spells it C-A-R-Y-N, Cyperstein, that she was using the same campaign advisor as Judge D'Amico. And again, that would be Rebecca Shelton, who I've met several times, very nice person. We asked Karen Cyperstein if there's any truth to the rumor that she had terminated her relationship with Rebecca Shelton. Here is a reply that she texted to me this morning. This is Karen Cyperstein. I've known Rebecca for years, and she was not discharged from the campaign, and she is still very supportive of me as a candidate, but her real estate brokerage is occupying her time, so she cannot devote her full time to me. She's a big supporter and helping me along the way with Pamela Goodman. Okay, so obviously, she's not throwing Shelton under the bus. So final question on this subject is, you saw what happened to Santino, who maligned her opponent for being just defending criminals. I mean, actually, she doesn't, the defense lawyer doesn't really defend criminals. He defends accused people who are not criminals until they're convicted. And everybody, of course, in America, under the Sixth Amendment, is entitled to a full and fair hearing. And I think defense attorneys are one of the most noble professions, and everybody, even Charlie Manson and, dare I say it, Adolf Hitler, they're entitled under American jurisprudence to the best defense. So, so what do you think is going to happen with this? Do you think, and also the Bryson thing where absenteeism, where you can quantify it, she was late X number of times and absent number of times. Do you think that this rises to the same level? If you were looking at a scale of 10, where Santino was a 10 and she was removed, and let's say Judge Bryson was maybe, I don't know, a 6 or a 7, and she was just reprimanded, I think was the official verdict. Where do you think this falls on that spectrum? Do you think it's up there, or is it maybe not so?
So it's for the JQC to investigate and decide, and I don't know that your numbers correspond to the JQC's investigation, but I can say that these violations, existed. The JQC will investigate, and I will also say this, Fred. I will say that the punishments, for example, one was removed from the bench, one was the punishment could be a reprimand. The punishment could be a suspension. The judge could simply be told, don't do that again. It varies. It's like any other allegation or any other breaking of the rules, or, if you will, any other defendant or case in criminal court, that kind of situation. It could run the gamut. So in this particular case, they removed it. And if you were around for former Judge Dana Santino, she dug in and continued to do it, and was almost indignant that no mistake was being made in if you look at the graphic, even it's his face with all these words like child pornographer, whatever. It was quite different. So on that scale, that punishment, the JQC felt was warranted, and I understand that. And so I'm saying that there's a spectrum here, and also what's different is the response. Here, they were removed.
Okay, fair enough. By the way, during the Santino hearing, one of the things that came out is I had attended a post-election party given by one candidate. I don't remember her name, but she was just thanking her supporters. She wasn't elected. I think it was Lisa Grossman. And I met Dana and her husband at that party. And I said, hey, Dana, I'm reading the Palm Beach Post this week, and, looks like there's a serious allegation that you broke the canons in your campaign. And, what do you think is going to happen here? This looks serious. It could possibly result in removal. Of course, I was correct. It did result in removal. Well, her answer, which, again, under subpoena and under oath, I had to tell to the court, was, oh, well, it'll probably just be a fine, and and that's that. Well, when I made that testimony in the courtroom, they were all very upset with that, because what it was telling them is you pay a $50,000 or $60,000 fine and it all goes away. And of course, the judges get something like $160,000 a year salary. So they just think it's just like a campaign expense, a pain in the neck, but something that you can just write off. Well, they didn't want to hear that. I believe that was one of the reasons why they chose removal, because they wanted to make a clear statement that you can't buy your way out of these violations. All right, I think unless you have any further comment, we've exhausted that subject. I just have a few more questions.
No, of course, take your time. I just wanted to say that was a very good example of no one's above the law, not even judges. And there is a belief in certain circles, if you will, that oh, you can't park here, I can park here because I'll just pay the $50. Or, oh, you can't do this, well, I can do this. And so I think that it was her mistake. So just be clear about what I'm speaking about. I'm not speaking about my opponent. I'm saying that was a very good example of no one is above the law. Judges are held to a certain standard. The voters have a right to be able to walk in a courtroom, first of all, decide who their judges are, number one, and be able to walk in a courtroom and know that they're in front of a rule follower. And Judge Santino was showing she's not a rule follower, and what applies to me doesn't apply to you, or what applies to you doesn't apply to me. So I think that, and the JQC obviously ruled that way.
Now, let me ask something. Judges have different rules than, let's say, state reps or senators. Did any of these rules about maligning your opponent apply outside of judicial races, as far as you know? Is there a special circumstance with the judiciary in order to, I think they say, maintain the dignity and integrity of the judiciary? There are different rules, right, for different races?
There are different rules. Judges are held to a higher standard. The judiciary is expected to be in strict compliance with them. And so, yes, it is far more strict than other elected and other officials.
Sure. And also, I'm not even going to ask you if you have any party affiliation, because I know it would be a violation of the canons for you to answer. Is that all right? Are you okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. So why do you suppose, it's an obvious answer, but I'll let you make it. Why do you suppose that judges are prohibited from aligning themselves with either Democrat or Republican? Why do you suppose that rule exists? And do you think it's a good rule?
So obviously, you've been doing this a long time, that judicial races are nonpartisan. And so we cannot disclose what our, party affiliation is, or if we have any party affiliation. And the reason is because judges, rule for all people, and because judges have, a power that is so great that and again, think about it in regular terms. I'm going to say it almost like I explain it to my little one, because my little one's like, what's going on? And, she wants to know, because her mom's running. And the way I explained it to her is judges are for all people. So it cannot be that they're, a Republican or a Democrat. They rule over all people, and they have so much power. And obviously now, all the more, you keep seeing how much judges matter. It seems like judges are in the news quite a bit. You've been doing this for a long time, so So it is a nonpartisan race, and we're not allowed to disclose it. And judges, and that's how it should be, so that when people walk into a courtroom, they know they're going to receive a fair and impartial hearing, not a biased hearing.
Sure. Okay, good enough. Now, you mentioned before that your opponent, the Honorable Paul D'Amico, who's been serving since 2001, never challenged, was a political appointee of Governor Jeb Bush. Now, I did a little research, and I found out the rule in Florida is if there is a vacancy, either death, retirement, or in Santino's case, removal, that goes to the judge to fill that vacancy, as opposed to somebody just saying, I'm not going to run again, in which case the people decide. What do you think of that rule? Do you think that's a good rule to give the governor that kind of power? And we all know there's going to be deals made. Let's say Paul D'Amico, for example, said, I've done 20 some odd years, I'm ready to retire. Don't you think there were people that would say to him, no, don't do that. Quit 3 weeks before the expiration of your term. This way, you're giving the governor the power to fill the seat with somebody he feels is more politically desirable, or whose views on different issues are more in alignment. What do you think of that? Do you think that's a good rule, or would you like to see all vacancies filled by a special election?
So I believe that obviously the voters should decide, and certainly a position as powerful and awesome and incredible as judges should be decided by the voters by an election. And so as you know, judges do serve 6-year terms, and it's not uncommon, as you said, for a judge to be reelected and then serve 2 or 3 years, 4 years, or even right before the 6-year mark, or they retire, and the governor gets to appoint. And as you said, deals are made, and certain people are then appointed. And honestly, I'm going to say it over and over because it's true. Let the voters decide. Palm Beach County voters should decide who sits on the bench. And 21 years, 20 years, think about it. There have been 3 presidents. A lot has happened. This is a different world. This is a different county in 21 years. And so if you think about it in those ways, this is not, county court is not a lifetime appointment. I understand that there are some people that feel that way, you know, that it is. And when they want to step down, they can step down and the governor can appoint. But I think, again, a lot has changed in 20 years. The voters should decide. And certainly, you know, the people in Sentry Village, I don't care if you're in Sentry Village, Boynton Beach, a gated community, Boca, wherever you're at, you should decide who our next judge is. And I hope to be that person, of course, but often what happens is the governor gets to appoint.
Sure. So, and obviously, who makes these rules? Would that be the legislature, which is Republican dominated, and you have a Republican governor? So I don't think you're going to get your wish that all vacancies should be filled by election anytime soon. Any comment on that?
I don't think I'm going to get my wish, but that doesn't make it, you know, I can articulate the fact that the voters should decide. And these rules have been in place, you know, before this governor, before the last governor. He didn't decide them. Occasionally, every now and then, they are challenged based on the timing of the retirement of a judge every now and then. But for the most part, it's something that's ingrained in our system that maybe isn't so great and should be revisited.
Sure. By the way, I should have asked you this a little earlier, but you're running for county court, and there's also a position called circuit court.
Right.
For people that are new to Florida or new to the system, can you explain the difference between a county court judge and a circuit court judge, and why you chose to run for county court? Is that considered a stepping stone, the circuit court, or are they separately equal? How would you feel about that?
So I'm qualified for county court and circuit court. I've been practicing for 16 years and have, you know, criminal, civil, all sorts of experience. But to answer your question on the difference, you know, I'm not considering it a stepping stone at all. But the county court, just so you know, and many may know, is known as the People's Court. I didn't make that up, but it is known as the People's Court. And so I specifically chose county court because I'd, you know, represented the poor, the voiceless, indigent, you know, people in our community. And as you said, everyone deserves a good defense. And I chose the People's Court because Palm Beach County is this diverse, dynamic, amazing county. And you probably know at this point, it's roughly 25% Hispanic. And I happen to be Hispanic. And so the differentiation, so county court is lower level misdemeanor, you know, crimes, if you will, or allegations, trespassing, things like that, disorderly conduct. And that's on the criminal side. And then on the, you know, and then in terms of what else county court hears, they hear cases up to $30,000. It's going up to $50,000 on January 1st. So, you know what that means: landlord-tenant issues, disputes, you know, some contract issues, some like small claims type work. So that's the difference. So county court is, you know, lower level criminal offenses and up to 30,000, going up to 50,000. And then circuit is, you're more serious. So, you know, so misdemeanors all the way, so petty theft, you know, grand theft, all the way to third degree, second degree, first degree felonies, you know, up to homicide. So I did not choose to do it for a stepping stone. I chose to do it because I am representative of the people of Palm Beach County. And I think that the People's Court is a very noble and wonderful place to be in our community. And because I personally want to serve in this community, I'm a member of numerous organizations and groups. And as I said, I do speak Spanish. And for me, this is where I want to serve. I'm ready to serve, and, let the voters decide.
Okay, that's terrific. Now, I'm going to ask you now what's been making a lot of news lately, not just in Florida, but all across the country, is the issue of a woman's right to choose and a woman's right to control her own body. And of course, I'm referring to the abortion issue, which is one of the most troubling issues that we as a civilization have to confront. I mean, everybody certainly wants to respect life, but everybody also wants to respect the woman's right. And so where do you stand on that issue? Are you allowed to talk about that? Because I don't think it would ever come before you as a county court judge. Are you allowed to comment on a big issue like abortion? Do you have a position?
So here's what I will say. Judges must avoid even the appearance of bias or impropriety, or even the appearance of it. Like, that's not a rule that I make. That is a general rule. And so I'm going to just steer clear of that. And I respect you and thank you for asking the question. It's a valid question, but because, because the judicial canons are so strict and precise, and judges have to avoid, even the appearance of impropriety, I'm gonna decline to answer that.
Okay, very good. My last question it's related to this, but not exactly. What do you think about the recent leak of the draft majority opinion on abortion that came out of the Supreme Court? And I think this is really the first time in the history of the court that this has occurred. And I don't even know if they've figured out who the leaker was. But do today, this is the information age, the internet, Twitter, Facebook, everything. There's no secrets. Do you think that it was appropriate for whoever leaked that draft, which apparently was done for political purposes, to stir up the pro-choice segment of the population? What do you think of that leak of the Supreme Court? Is that good or bad for society?
Again, I'm going to steer clear of weighing in here, at all, because you have certain groups that are saying, let's investigate the leak, and you know what I mean? So I'm going to decline to answer that.
All right, no problem at all. All right, so let's just talk for a moment just about the mechanics of the election. You're in a primary race, correct?
Yes.
And primary day in Palm Beach County is when?
The election is on August 23rd. So right now we're less than 3 months away. I know the exact date if I look at my phone, but
no, it's the 23rd. It's the 23rd, Tuesday.
No, I do know the exact date, but I'm saying I know exactly how many days and hours if I look at my phone. But yes, it's August 23rd. I do know the date. Yes.
Yes. Now, just as a service to the voters, I believe now we have 3 ways of voting. There's the traditional, where you just show up on the 23rd, and as long as you're a registered voter, you get a ballot and you vote it. But we also have what they used to call absentee ballots, but they've gotten away from that because it has almost a stigma to it that you failed to show up or something. So they call it now VBM, or vote by mail. And then, of course, there's early voting. Do you know what the timetable is? I believe that the mail ballots are by statute supposed to go out about 30 to 45 days before August 23rd. Is that about right?
Yes. And I shut my phone off because a timer was going off. Oh. So I shut my phone off, but I do have the exact dates on my phone, which I just shut off. But yes, that is correct. And early voting as well. I have the dates on my phone. But yes.
Okay. So, a lot of people now, since the last presidential election where doubt was cast on vote by mail, a lot of people now are saying, no, I don't trust the mail system, or they have the ballot for too long. Do you think that vote by mail is a wise system for this country? Do you think it has its merits? Obviously, you get greater participation if people don't have to physically drive to a location, but do you think that there's greater opportunities for fraud or uncounted or undercounted ballots? What's your take on that?
So I'm going to address it as it applies to my specific race and election. My race is August 23rd. That's summertime for some people in some professions. They go away then. They take extended trips. And so for some people, because they're away, voting by mail is, obviously the best choice and the only option. I think that we've seen that voting on election day sometimes requires, an hour, 2 hours. That doesn't always, not everyone has.
Right.
I think that certainly in Palm Beach County, we know that the elections are safe, that the votes are counted. We know that if you need to vote by mail, you should vote by mail. We're obviously supporting early voting, and I'll have the dates on my website. People can go to the campaign website, which is here, www.karenvelezforjudge.com, in order to find that information. And we're also going to email or reminders on early voting and reminders for everyone. And we have new residents, people that have moved here. I met a woman yesterday that moved here from Ohio. I met a woman that moved here from California. So we have a lot of new residents in Palm Beach County. So we're also letting people know how they can vote. I'm sorry.
What's that website again? I want to pull it up. Your campaign website?
It's www.
Yeah.
Karen Velez.
All right, hold on. VARENVELEZ and numeral.
The number 4. The
Right,
number 4
numeral,
judge.
We say numeral. Wait, judge.
Yes.
Judge.
.com. Yeah, it looks like
.com, right?
you're right. So tiny.
That should do it. Karen Velez for
Yes.
judge. Is that it? All right. So is it
I
coming up?
think
Oh, there
so.
it is.
Yeah,
Okay, there's your website. So anybody that wants to visit this website, it's Karen Velez numeral 4 judge, the number 4.
Yes.
And it tells you the date of the primary and a little bit of background. And of course, there's your beautiful daughter. She's what, 10
Yes.
years old, you said?
She's 10 years old. She's so tall. I was thinking the other day that in like 2 years, she's going to be as tall as me. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Just as a last thing, it's not really relevant to anything, but you can't escape it. What do you think about the recent shootings in Texas? It just seems to be an endless series of these. We're all numb. But do you have any comments on that? Do you have any feelings about guns or anything you want to talk about?
So I'm a former teacher, and I was teaching during 9/11. This is very emotional. So I had to comfort my students and be stoic in front of high school students during 9/11 while they called their family members in New York, because as you know, there's a large population of New Yorkers in Palm Beach County and in the area in Florida and South Florida. And it's horrifying and terrifying. And parents today are really struggling, and teachers, and it's a lot. I think that we have to obviously reevaluate what our true priorities are. And I think that parents have a right to send their kids to school and have them feel safe. It was very hard to send my daughter to school the last 2 days. And she called me, so we got her a watch phone. And she called me, she pocket dialed me, and I heard like a muffled sound, and for like 10 minutes, I was just trying to call her back and just holding my breath, because I'm sorry, I turned my phone back on. It's one of those things as a parent that it's terrifying. So I think, again, our elected officials matter, and we have to really reevaluate as citizens, as voters, who we elect and what we do. And teachers, parents are struggling, men and women. If you have a child today and you send them to school, it is Not easy. And they deserve better.
Sure. Well, that was very sincere, and I'm very moved the way you feel, and I understand as a parent and a former teacher that really hits home for you. All right. Well, I didn't mean to end it on a down note, but we've been talking with the lovely and talented, as I used to say on Late Night with David Letterman, Karen Velez, and she's running for County Court Group 9. By the way, there's no group. Group just means Judge 9, right? I was going to say, who else is in your?
It's more like a seat. It's not a group. But yes, so I'm running for Group 9. I am asking for your vote. I am asking for your support, and obviously all the citizens of and residents of not just Sentry Village, but all of Palm Beach County.
Right. And are you still there?
I'm still here.
Yeah. No, I was just looking for one other thing that I had pulled up.
For just $67.
Well, anyway, I looked at the donation website, and you're way outgunned right now. It seems that Judge D'Amico, I think he loaned his campaign $100,000, and the only thing he spent is the filing fee, $6,500 or something. And I looked at your website, and you only seem to have a few pennies more than you needed to make the filing fee. So as you know, running for any office, especially in Palm Beach County, you got lawn signs, you got buttons, you got TV advertising. Do you think you can mount a credible campaign against an incumbent with such a small war chest, or do you plan to raise more money? How's that work?
So good question. So what you look at, what you have access to, is just the month of filing. So okay. So what that means is, in practicality, judges lend themselves. So Judge Bryce, every judge that's up for re-election loans themselves $100,000 to scare off any potential opponent. And some will spend it and some won't. So for example, Judge Kastronakis, he was in the race. So and then he bowed out. So it's not uncommon for judges to loan their campaign, $50, 75, 100, 125, $1,000. And it's to ward off anyone thinking of running against them. And then what you're looking at in terms of the spending, same thing. It's not this month. It's not current. It's through April. So the money that was loaned to the campaign was for the filing fee and just to get the accounts open. Obviously, winning an election is not just the money you spend, but it's also the votes. It's also grassroots. So I'm going to 5, 6, 10 places a day to meet the voters, and so far it's been effective. Will all of these voters donate? It's hard to say, but what I will say is that I can and am loaning my campaign more money, and I am going to meet the voters. At the end of the day, the voters will decide if they want to keep him or if they want something new. And and so the numbers you're looking at are last month.
Okay, very good. Now, one last thing that just came to my mind. Do you have any policy on from whom you will accept donations? For example, 2 weeks ago, there was a bipartisan movement, and I know Republican Brian Mast from the Treasure Coast, he's a congressman. He's part of it, and then there's a Democrat, Zamora or something, I can't remember her name. But anyway, the gist of it was that all candidates should refuse to take money from the sugar industry. Why? Because the sugar industry is poisoning our air by burning the leaf off the sugar and putting soot and smoke into the air. And they're also poisoning the waterways with runoff from agriculture. And as you know, this causes toxic, I don't know how close you are to the coast, but it's a real problem. It scares away the tourists. It's impossible to breathe, the smell and everything. Do you think that that's a wise policy, that politicians here should not take money from big sugar or even little sugar until they clean up or go green? For example, they could cut the leaf off the sugar instead of burn it. That's called green harvest, and they do that in several countries: Australia, Thailand, South America, one of the countries. What do you think about that? Do you have any ground rules that you won't take money from any particular industry or group? Or
so first you had me crying. I'm just kidding. I had no idea that this was going to be both emotional. I'm kidding. I don't want to make light of the fact that we had a serious discussion a few minutes ago. But I will say this. I will say that it's not an issue that I've had to address in terms of the donations that I'm receiving. And so I'm gonna just leave it at that, Fred.
Right, but some people say, I only take donations from individuals, not corporations. You have any kind of rule in place? Have you thought about a policy such as that?
So in my particular case, it's individuals that have been making donations.
Fair enough. So you haven't taken any corporate money yet?
Correct.
All right, well, I would advise that you steer away from it, especially from such a destructive industry as the sugar industry. And by the way, we're not against them growing sugar. We just want them to clean up their act. And green harvest, of course, would actually increase jobs, not do away with jobs. So we're not trying to put anybody out of work or destroy an industry. Of course, sugar is the biggest agricultural product in Florida, bigger than all the other products put together. But that's sort of like a running theme that I've been fighting along with the Sierra Club to try to get them to stop these pre-harvest burns of sugar. Do you have any closing remarks, and particularly to my audience, which is we have 5,712 units, approximately 8,000 residents. Of course, many of them are ineligible to vote because they're snowbirds, but still, we've got at least 4,000 potential votes that could come out for you. Do you have any message for them, or why you think they should support your campaign by voting for you and or contributing, which they can do through your website, which is Karen Velez, .com, right? But,
For judge.com, correct.
Judge, left out the judge. Lift your badge up a little higher, or lean back because it's a little cut off. Right, we'll get that in there. That's the website. So what's your answer to that? Do you have any message for? We're over 55 community, and obviously we have certain needs. Anything you want to?
So obviously I'm Karen Velez. This has been a very informative, I've learned a very good interview. Thank you, Fred. I'm asking obviously for the vote and support, and I think that after 16 years as a lawyer, a teacher before that, a person that owns a business, that works in this community, that's been here, sorry, my timers are going off, that's been in Palm Beach County for well over 20 years, as a wife of over 24 years. I am looking for and asking for and hoping for, to be elected the first Hispanic female judge in Palm Beach County. And it's a dynamic, incredible community. And the courthouse was built 106 years ago, and there's never been an elected Hispanic female in the history of Palm Beach County. And as you know, this is a diverse, large Hispanic community, Palm Beach County. And beyond the fact that I'm Hispanic, I am qualified. I've been doing this representing, and business owners, regular mom and dads, as a public defender. I was a teacher. And so I'm asking for your vote. And I think that, again, the opponent has never, ever been tested or challenged by the voters in over 20 years. And this is a different Palm Beach County than it was 20 years ago. This is a different community than it was 20 years ago. And if the voters decide that they want to keep him, that's their right. And if the voters decide that they want to try something else or change, there's been 3 presidents in that time that a new judge should take the bench, then I'm the woman, I'm the girl, I'm the person for them. I'm the attorney that they should vote for.
Do you think you'll come out to Century Village and make a campaign stop here? We have a temple on premises because they don't allow politicians in the clubhouse. And a lot of times they come over here and they give out a free bagel or something and bring their message. Do you think you might stop off here?
Absolutely. And I know that traditionally it's done like closer to the election, but I don't want to wait. I think it makes sense to get out and meet the voters of Century Village. So absolutely. And thank you for asking that question. I absolutely want to meet.
We'd love to have you. We love to have you out here. And, we have a growing Hispanic population here in Century Village. I go to the dances every Saturday night. So, and, Hispanics, they love to dance and have a good time. So I think you ought to put it on your list. Last question, you have Puerto Rican ancestry. Did you see the remake of West Side Story?
I did not see the remake.
Well, the original.
I've heard different things. Some people love it. Some people, anyway, I did not see it, but I do want to say what you said. I want to address what you said before about about the dances in Century Village. I have family members and friends in Century Village. So I have been to the dances and I know that they're lively. And I mean, it's been pre-COVID. It's probably been like 4 or 5 years, but I have been, and I do remember that the dances are quite entertaining and fun.
All right. Well, we'd love to see you there, but just remember the rule of the clubhouse. Don't wear your badge, or hand out literature or anything like that, because whoever you're the guest of, risks, shall we say, reprimand and possible suspension, to use the terms of the day. All right. Well, listen, Karen, you've been very generous with your time, and we thoroughly enjoyed meeting you. And, we both have a lot of roots in Queens and Brooklyn, and we're both residents of Boca. And I only hope that if you get elected, that you'll invite me to come down to your swearing in ceremony up at the courthouse, and we'll live stream it. We've done that for about 8 or 10 candidates. I usually like to sit in the second row right behind where you sit, so that when you get up, there's a little gap that I can film through. So keep me in mind for that. And I wish you every luck on the 23rd of August in your race for County Court Group 9. Thank you again, Karen, and best of luck going forward on this. Okay, bye-bye now.
It was a pleasure. Have a good one. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye. Okay, thanks for sitting through that. And as it says, she was the first jurist to be removed in Palm Beach County.